Hey, all, welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'm Darren, I'm your host, of course, and today I have Kevin Liddell and Lloyd Cupiccia back on. We're going to talk about sous vide times and temps, and we're going to talk about some Thanksgiving meal preparation, turkeys and all that. So I'll be right back with Kevin Liddell and Lloyd Cupiccia.
Smoking, grilling, getting hot and hotter. Sous vide and chilling from fire and water.
Hey, all, I want to introduce you to a company I just started working with, Fresh Jack's Organic Spices out of Jacksonville, Florida. They're a small, family-run company that's fast-growing. I've tried a bunch of their different seasoning blends and spices, and I can tell you they're all fresh, all organic. None of them contain artificial flavors or sweeteners. None of them have anti-caking agents or preservatives. They all taste like they were just made for you yesterday. Check them out, guys. They're on Amazon in the link below. They have different sample packs, different blends. Like I said, they also have the individual seasonings and spices as well. Fresh Jack's Organic Spices. Check them out, guys. I love them. Welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'm a little late this week because, hey, it's, the week of Thanksgiving. So had some other things going on. And, I got my buddies here, Lloyd Cupiccia and Kevin Liddell. He is, both of them, they're here. We're going to discuss some things that gets brought up a lot in the Facebook groups. We talk about some of this stuff a lot, and I like to bring it out here on the podcast. But welcome back, Lloyd, the Kosher Dosher. Say hello.
Hey, Darren. Hey, guys.
And Kevin Liddell of Sous Vide Food and Fun. Welcome back.
Hello, ladies.
Oh, we're not all ladies, just me.
See the beard here?
Dainty.
Yeah.
And Lloyd's at the beach again. Lloyd's
Oh, God.
out at the beach. So
I wish I was at the beach right now.
And Kevin should not have any audio or video technicalities this time because he's got his internet fixed. But welcome back, guys. I want to thank you for coming and being here so that we can talk about we're going to talk about Thanksgiving and turkey and some stuff later on, but I want to talk about some things that kind of bounce around a lot in the sous vide groups that we're both in. One of those is the pasteurization times and temps versus the cooking times and temps. They're different, and people kind of confuse the two or get a little overzealous on one or the other. And for people that are new to sous vide cooking, I know it can be really confusing, and it took me kind of a while, when I first started getting into it, to really understand that there was a difference between the two. So, first of all, the times for pasteurization, Lloyd, how important are those to the home cook when you're doing sous vide?
To the home cook, it depends on who you're cooking for. So if you're I can't even pronounce the word. If you have immune problems, right, compromised systems, you have AIDS, HIV, you've got cancer, you're diabetic, small children, old people, you might want to consider pasteurization. But it's not a requirement. Unless you own a restaurant, you're serving food in a professional capacity, pasteurization is not a requirement. Now, for your viewers, I'm not against pasteurization. I would say 100% of all my food is pasteurized because I sous vide it, but it's not a requirement. People need to relax on the food groups about it's not pasteurized. Sometimes you only want to cook a particular protein to the point where it equalizes, meaning the bath temperature and the protein are the same temperature. For example, a chicken breast, right? You don't need to pasteurize a chicken breast unless you really, really want to. It's not necessary. It really isn't. More importantly, a steak.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I always looked at is that, when you're cooking a steak traditionally, you're not pasteurizing. If you're cooking it rare, let's just say rare or even medium rare, you're not cooking it, pasteurizing it all the way through
at all.
When you're cooking it traditionally, because you're cooking it hot and fast, you're pasteurizing the outside, the surface, which is a good thing because that's where 99.9% of your pathogens are going to reside anyway. But I see people, talk about cooking a steak and it has to be pasteurized 100% all the way through. Well, it was never like that during the traditional cooking.
Let me give you some numbers, for example. So in sous vide cooking, let's say you like your steak at an internal temperature of 131 degrees. With sous vide cooking, okay, it happens all the time. When you cook it traditionally, it's not going to happen. So at 131 degrees, once that temperature is reached, if you hold it for 91 minutes, it reaches a 7D log reduction, right? When you cook it in a skillet or a barbecue, it may hit an internal temperature of 131, but it's not pasteurized. Now, of course, you're cooking it traditionally. You have the gradient levels on the outside. It's gray till it gets to the very, very pink interior. That pink interior is not pasteurized at all. Sous vide, it's going to be pasteurized, but it's not a requirement.
Right.
We're overthinking these things.
So what about, Kevin, what's your thoughts on that? Because that's what I'm saying is that for some reason, when people start talking about sous vide, they think it needs to be all the way completely pasteurized 100% through the meat. Whereas on a traditional cook like steak, or we're talking about, it's not going to be no matter what you do.
Yeah, some of the things you have to worry about are like Costco's steaks that they needle. So they're introducing bacteria into the interior. I would pasteurize those steaks if I were doing those. Doing hamburger, I like a medium rare hamburger, and ever since I started doing sous vide, I pasteurize all my burgers so that I can safely eat a medium rare hamburger. I've never gotten food poisoning from eating a medium rare hamburger cooked in a normal way, but it's just a bit of insurance. The one thing that I think is helpful is with fish. Since fish, we usually cook at relatively low temperatures for short amounts of time. A lot of people are doing their fish at 122 degrees for half an hour. It cooks faster, but you're not achieving pasteurization in that time necessarily if you're not searing it or something. So what I often do will have like 185-degree water bath, and I'll dunk that fish in the water bath for a certain amount of time, and that pasteurizes the exterior pretty quickly. And then I'll put it into a lower temperature bath to finish it. And you get two benefits from that. You pasteurize the fish, which you normally probably wouldn't, and you get more of a traditional texture. You get sort of a more done on the outside and more tender and rare, less cooked in the middle. It works out really well with fish.
Well, let me ask you a question on fish, though, because I know a lot of times they will flash freeze the fish at the port or when they bring them in because of more for parasites, worms and stuff like that. Does it still collect, other pathogens in between that time, you think, that it needs to really worry about?
You're still going to have surface bacteria from the handling, and freezing preserves bacteria. It doesn't kill bacteria, but it'll kill roundworms and the sort of things that the icky things that you see crawling in fish every once in a while.
There are three of them. There are three types of parasites. I'm sorry.
What are they?
I can't even pronounce the words, but all freezing does, and salmon specifically, is to kill the parasites.
Well, one of them's called icky because that's what Kevin just said. It was an icky thing. So that's
icky thing. Back to what Kevin was talking about the fish. It was introduced at ISVA, I think, 2 years ago, and Mike Lacharte, I can't pronounce his name, Mike Lacharte, French name, gave me the recipe. And I think the salmon they cooked at was 183 for 3 minutes. Then they transferred the fish to
184.
Yeah, something like that for 3 minutes. And that definitely pasteurizes the outside right away. And like Kevin said, it gives that traditional texture. Then they threw it into another bath. I think it was set at 122, Kevin, for like 20 minutes, 15 minutes. And it produced a perfect fish. But texturally, though, the outside is pasteurized without a doubt. And most bacteria, pathogens are on the surface of most proteins. You're not really worried about the inside, but it produces a perfect fish.
Now let's talk about things. Go ahead, Kevin.
Pathogens such as the roundworms and stuff that we worry about are extremely susceptible to temperatures above 120 degrees. So, like a few years ago, when I was still sort of new to sous vide, a friend of mine gave me some bear meat, and I wanted to cook some medium rare bear. but I knew that there's a, the vast majority of trichinosis cases in this country come from bear meat, undercooked bear meat. So I did some research on how long I needed to cook it, and at, I'm cooking the bear at 135 degrees. I think I cooked it at, and that kills all trichinosis in about 3 minutes. At 121 or 120 degrees, trichinosis dies in 21 hours. But once you start going up, it really, once you're in the 130s, it's a matter of minutes that you're eliminating any possibility of the parasite. So parasites are really easy to take care of.
Yeah, and I think that's, you don't hear much about trichinosis in pork anymore. I mean, that was used to be, I know when I was growing up, that was the big thing that everybody, you got to make sure you cook your pork all the way or you're going to get trichinosis. And I think just from the way it's raised and, handled anymore, they got rid of most of that.
There hasn't been a case of trichinosis in the United States in 25 years.
Right.
Well, not from commercial pork.
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Now, maybe wild hogs, I know that down here, especially, I know in Texas, they hunt a lot of wild, we got a lot of wild boar out here. Just, they grow I had them out in my backyard last year when we first moved in. I had 30 of them out there running around. So, and they do hunt a lot of those out here. So, but you just don't hear much about that anymore. But so let's talk about then, because that's one of the big things when people start doing sous vide, everybody says, make sure you look at the Baldwin tables, and I'm going to pull them up here so people know what I'm talking about.
Love the Baldwin tables. And, I really, really do.
I'm not saying that they are, not necessary, but I think people tend to get, when they start looking at them, they are, Baldwin is not the most easily read or actually easily, when you watch his videos, they're not easy to watch.
Well,
Darren, put you to sleep pretty easy.
Darren, for me, I started reading Baldwin when he first published his book. His book, for me, opened up the world to me to sous vide in 2000. Yeah. I think I started reading him in 2008, 2009. But I got to tell you, I've read it 3 times. And it's like reading a really good book. Oh, I missed that part. I missed that part. You really have to read that book over and over again. Yeah. You got to look at the fine print. You got to look at the footnotes, the bibliography to really understand what the hell he's talking about.
Well, most people aren't like you and don't like to read the manual of their car. So
I read everything.
And this is kind of what it reminded me when I first started reading it. I mean, I started reading some of the stuff, but I just kind of I'd skip all the reading part and just go right
I love this stuff.
Charts. Go to the charts. Too. I tried to watch his videos, a few of his videos, and I fell asleep through the first 5 minutes because he's so boring. He doesn't, he has no personality, but the information he puts out there is great. And it's very important, food safety is always going to be important, but it is very technical and people tend to, glom onto that. A lot of the stuff he talks about is based on, commercial type pasteurization requirements and stuff. And he does get really deep down in explaining exactly what, pathogen dies in this particular, and not everybody is like you, Lloyd. They just tell me what's the minimum temperature for what's the minimum time I know. So I can eat it and not get diarrhea.
Darren, I will tell you this, and I wrote an article on this, but if I got into a discussion last night on one of the groups about this very, very subject, and people use apps. Well, I got to tell you something. A lot of, and I've actually talked with Dr. Baldwin about this in a message sharing format, and a lot of people, and I won't say their names, they use his algorithms for their apps. Okay, but I think they've made some changes to his algorithms because his times don't match up with theirs in the apps. People do not trust the apps. Do not trust the information that you're looking on the machine. I have not found it to be consistent. I use sous vide probes. I've contrasted my sous vide probes with Baldwin's and all the apps out there, and Baldwin's come the closest. Mathematically, I mean, this is as perfect as you can get. Apps suck.
No,
they really, really do.
Well, they overgeneralize stuff, and they make it. Try to make it very simple for people. And I think that's where they fall down. They make it too simple, and and I know you're talking about chef steps, and that's okay because he was actually
well, not only chef steps, Polyscience too. They're sous vide tool. It sucks.
He was on there. He worked for Chef Steps, so I mean, he helped put some of that stuff together. But they do over. I don't use their Joule app because their times and temps are off. Especially you cooking a steak for an hour, and especially a strip steak. It's like it's going to be there's no tenderization. But other than that, when you get into I want to show people. If you go into his website, which is douglasbaldwin.com, and you go to the sous vide section, you can just go to the different, beef, pork, poultry, fish.
Well, people make a mistake with Baldwin. So if you scroll up, you'll get to the pasteurization. But prior to the pasteurization table, there's a table that says heat to temperature. Let's see, where did I see? Keep going, go down. Just see heating times. Yeah, heating times from frozen. Scroll down a little bit more. The other way. Go up. Heating times from 41 degrees. So people confuse this chart, right, with the pasteurization chart.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I want to have people understand. There's two different really temperatures. So like when you're talking about a really tough meat like a chuck roast, when we say we're going to cook it for 36 or 48 hours, well, it's definitely going to be pasteurized well before that time.
Absolutely.
You're cooking it for more tenderization, and it's going to be medium rare way before then too.
Well, in addition to that, your log reduction is amazing. So, for example, a 7D log reduction for chicken is a 10 million to 1 ratio, meaning there's one pathogen for 10 million. In other words, this is 99.99999% pathogen free as a 7D log reduction. You cook a chuck roast for 36, 40 hours, you're at a 58D log reduction. 58. So take 99 point and then add another 50, 4 nines. Yeah, it's there's no pathogens in it. People need to freaking relax a little bit.
I think you just put me to sleep.
Okay, see table 1.1. It says approximate cooling times, right? Now keep going up. Get to the heating table. Approximate heating times. And if you read that, it says, look at that. You can decrease the time by 13% if you only want to heat the meat to within 2 degrees. You got to read the fine print of all his stuff, okay? Heating times from frozen to 1 degree. If you read the caveat below, right, approximate heating times from frozen. If you go to the pasteurization tables, they still have the same caveats in there. When you go to some of those apps, it throws off the equation by 20 to 30%.
Yeah, and that's because they're trying to oversimplify it so that because they don't want people asking these questions. And that's one of the things too that a lot of people don't understand, especially when they're new, that how many times you see the question, I have a 3 pound pork roast, how much, what do I cook it at, and it's like doesn't matter what the weight is, right? And that's what people tend to miss, that it goes by thickness instead of the weight of the meat. So if they don't understand that you're trying to cook from the outside in, that's more important of how heavy it is. It's how long is it going to take for the heat to get from the outside all the way into the interior to cook it. And especially
Dave Petranczyk of Polyscience is a big proponent of to overcome the length of time that it takes to achieve that last degree of equilibrium. He's a big proponent of putting the steak or whatever you're cooking into the water bath at a higher temperature than you want the final product to be. So if you want your steak to be 132 degrees, he'll put it in at 138, and it decreases your cooking time. Now he also has a probe in there so you know when you achieve your internal temperature that you want. Otherwise, you have no way. It's just going to end up cooking all the way to equilibrium. But so he knows it off the top of his head. I can't think of it off the top of my head right now, but the amount of time in you decrease by just a few degrees of a higher temperature. The amount of time it decreases the cooking time of the product is pretty amazing.
I wrote an article on that, but I actually wrote an article on that, by the way, and it only requires about a degree, maybe half a degree. You don't have to go another 6 degrees. You really don't. It's called hotter than core approach approach to cooking. And I wrote an article on that. It's in my blog, and get it to me, and I'll send it to you. But a degree. So if you want to stick at 133, I may cook at 134. If I'm truly want equilibrium to be achieved. So 6 degrees is extreme, but Modern Cuisine wrote 2 chapters on that in their book.
Yeah, and that's important, and that's, believe it or not, one of the things that we've talked about the Innova Precision Oven a couple times, but that's one of the things that Scott was kind of explaining that it could do, because it does have an internal probe. You can do that with the oven really easy because of that. So you can overshoot. You can put it at, if you wanted it 140, you can cook it at 144 to 145 until it starts creeping up there, and then drop your temperature down and let the last couple degrees creep up, because it does take so long. So that was one of the things that, he was talking about. You can do that with the new circulator that Polyscience came out, and some of these others that have the probe. I actually can do it with I have the meat stick. I can monitor the internal temperature, because this is a Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, thermometer. I can stick in the sous vide bag and do that as well. It doesn't have to be attached to the circulator. So I can do the same thing. You really want to be able to monitor the internal temperature of the meat to do that, though. So let's get back into the temperatures for the cooking temperatures. Instead of the pasteurization, where everybody gets kind of hung up on pasteurization, another thing that people don't understand is the longer you cook, especially on these tougher meats, the more tenderization happens, and the thickness of the meat. You're wanting to know the thickness of the meat so that you can get the doneness level, no matter what it is. So go ahead, Lloyd.
Oh boy. All right. So depends on the meat. So for it really depends on the meat. But ribeye, let's talk about ribeye. Everybody loves a good ribeye. And I wrote an article on how to cook a ribeye. I found that, and again, using sous vide probes, I know when I reach the state of equilibrium, if I add 3 hours to that time, I've achieved what I want to do with the piece of meat. What you have to figure out, again, I love Baldwin's tables. Go by his tables, and you'll find heating to temperature based on the thickness, and adding time to that number will achieve your tenderization. In his pasteurization charts, sometimes they don't equate to time to temperature. Him and I talked about that. Sometimes you'll achieve pasteurization before they actually reach equilibrium, if that makes sense to your audience. So in other words, the product will be pasteurized, but yet it has not achieved equilibrium, meaning that the temperature of the bath and the protein are the same temperature. It comes down to trial and error. That's all I got to say. It really, really does. And what your preferences are. I talked to one guy, and he cooked a bottom round steak for like 4 hours. He thought it was amazing. That's shoe leather. Sorry. That's my personal preference. You need 12 to 15 hours, in my opinion. But it comes down to trial and error. But use Baldwin's tables if you don't know, at least as a place to start.
Right. That's one of the reasons I like Jason's times and temps that he puts out there, because he gives ranges, and that accounts for personal taste. So he most of his stuff has pasteurization built into it, but he gives you ranges of doneness. Even on like medium rare, he'll say from whatever it is, from like 4 hours to 12 hours. So that 4 to 12 is where your tenderness, personal preference can come into play. It's going to be pasteurized. It's going to be
you do it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. So
you may have to cook that same steak 3 times to find out what you like.
Exactly. And depending on what it is, I mean, I don't know. I saw somebody post a couple months ago about, a London broil for like 8 hours and at 132 degrees. It's like, that had to be tough. I don't care what you,
Oh, right. But
top
But it's
round.
but
also
good,
also the,
Kevin.
the same the same cuts of meat can be different. I've done eye rounds when they're on sale because they're just cheap. And other than cooking them sous vide, I would never buy them. And we used them for like baked steak on cheap caterings and stuff sometimes, or we put it through a tenderizer and baked it in a gravy, some crappy gravy sauce. Um, but now that I've done them 48 hours at 132 degrees, and I've done them at 24 hours at 132 degrees, and I've actually gotten relatively similar results. Every animal's different, and so obviously the one that went for 48 hours was a much tougher cut, much tougher piece of eye brown than the one that was just as good at 24 hours.
Yeah, that's true because, and you'll see that all the time too. Is like people will complain, oh yeah, I did this one at this and it was still tough. Well, you could have got a no roll. You could have went to your local market that was selling no roll stuff that's not even graded at all, and it's because it's a tough piece of meat. And then you go and you buy a prime or something, and it's totally different. So, and every animal is different, like you said as well. So every breed's different. A lot of these supermarkets, I know, like the discount type ones, like we have these down here, like Winn-Dixie or Cash and Carry or Pay Less or something like that. They get a lot of their meat from Mexico, and it says U.S. inspected, but they inspect it because they buy the cows and they ship them across the border. They slaughter them here, but the meat is just horrible. I mean, they inspect it just to make sure it doesn't have worms crawling out of it, I guess.
Oh,
but
gosh.
it's not graded at all. It's just it's Mexican meat. And I have a local butcher shop they're a pretty big butcher shop, but they cater like to the poorer neighborhoods, and they'll have it all in one case over there, all the Mexican meats over here, and they'll tell you that's all Mexican meat. And it's cheap, but it's tough too. They're, like you said, their fillets are like, got you chewing.
So, well, I'm gonna talk about the filet real quick. You talked about pasteurization and sous vide. Filet is a good example where you'd only want to take that to the point of equalization, meaning the bath temperature is the same as the protein. There's no benefit to cooking it longer, unless of course it's Mexican meat. But a good American choice or prime filet only needs to be cooked to the exact internal temperature, and you're done. Unlike a ribeye or a New York, where you got to go longer to tenderize the meat, will also, of course, pasteurize the beef.
Yeah, anything that's really tender off the bat, you really don't need to worry about cooking it for a long time in sous vide. And that's one of the people, when the new people come in and they get hung up on some of the times that we talk about, but not everything needs to be cooked for 48 hours, but some of the stuff needs to be, if you want sous vide to perform better than anything else that you could, any other way you could cook it. So,
for example, chicken breast, right? Chicken breast. I cooked my chicken breast at 152 degrees for about 90 minutes. Well, that in turn equalizes it, but also pasteurizes it. Anytime beyond 90 minutes it's wasteful. Yeah. You end up getting diminishing returns when you overcook a piece of meat.
Now you take a pork loin, not a tenderloin, a pork loin. Instead of a pork tenderloin, you can let that run, 4, 5, 6, 8 hours, and it's great. But you put a pork tenderloin in there, it's going to turn to mush. So, and it
brings me to a story. Yeah. Quick story. Guy at work. Just getting into sous vide. I tell him what to buy. I say, buy an Innova. This is way back in the day. Buy when the Novas first came out. So he buys the Innova, and he's reading, you can't overcook a piece of meat. So not really. And I try to basically what you should and shouldn't do. So he goes to work. He puts the New York strip in, 3 or 4 of them, I believe. He's going to work 10 hours. He puts it in the bath. Time he gets home, gets it out. It's 12 hours. He said, Lloyd, it was dry. How long did you cook it for? 12 hours. How thick was it? 3/4 of an inch. Well, there's a reason. Yes, it was at 131 degrees internal temperature, but it was mushy and high. So there comes a point where you get diminishing returns if you exceed certain parameters
It
Exactly.
gets. I've had a few fails where I've gone too long with the meat, and I don't know if it necessarily gets drier, but it gets the texture is grainy almost. It's like a soft, grainy, weird texture that almost imitates dryness. I mean, I don't know. I've never done any, percentages on moisture loss between like a 24-hour cook and a 48-hour cook. Maybe I should try that sometime. But I've just found that the texture is
I
just
have.
so off-putting. Okay. I
It,
figured
it's,
Lloyd
it,
probably had.
it's significant. It's significant.
Yeah, I did that with
Okay.
a leg of lamb, a boneless leg of lamb. The first one I ever tried cooking sous vide. For some reason, I went like 12 or 15 hours, and it when I cut into it, it looked the color was great, but once I bit into it, it was that, like you said, it's that mealy type of mushy. It wasn't, and that really just turned me off. And the flavor was good. I mean, it wasn't. It was the whole texture thing, and
Was
that
it
can
dry?
kill.
Was it dry?
Well, I don't know if it tasted dry, but like, it tasted more like chalky, which is probably because of the texture. I think it's all, I'm sure it did, expel a lot more moisture in that time, of course, because it's still going to do that. But it was more the texture was just like Kevin said, it's kind of mealy and, really like just too tender. There's things when you bite into something, you expect something to have a little bit of bounce to it, and just goes, it was really, that was a fail. It was my first. I learned a lot from that. You only do something like that once, then you go, okay, and that next $50 piece of meat, I'm not going to do that to it. So
The
you don't
first
want
the first time I ever did or tried duck confit sous vide, I overcooked it and it was mush. And so I was thinking, well, I paid a lot for these duck legs, not a real cheap piece of.
I want to give your viewers some gee whiz information about salmonella. So I found this fascinating. I found this about 2 years ago. Okay, and tell me, stop me if it gets too technical. But I don't think it will be.
Oh, don't worry, I'll edit this whole part out. Go ahead.
Okay, good. So let me tell you. Ready? So salmonella produced fastest at 107 degrees. So the FDA will say at 107 degrees, chicken salmonella at 4 hours is still safe to eat. Now, as the temperature rises, the proliferation of the pathogens are reduced. So to get the same amount of pathogens at 107 degrees at 4 hours, at 39 degrees Fahrenheit, it would take 1.3 years. At 50 degrees Fahrenheit, it would take 5 days. At 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 hours. At 86 degrees, 7 hours. At 118.4 degrees, 5 weeks. So when people talk about the danger zone, not all numbers are created equally. So, 40 to 140 is crap, by the way. It is really, really is crap, because not all temperatures within that danger zone are not equally dangerous. So people have to get out the book and start reading.
They do it just because they have to cover their.
I know.
It's for the dumbest person working in the kitchen. You have to say, this is how it is, and this is what you have to do. The 107 degree mark was picked out because it's the fastest of all. It's that's the average fastest increasing temperature for bacteria to proliferate across the board. It's not, another might do better at 112, one might do better at 96, but the median is 107, and that's what they use, and that's why they came up with the 4 hours.
What I found fascinating, though, think about this. So if you think about their time, 40 to 140, you take 107 degrees at 4 hours, FDA says it's safe to eat. But at 68 degrees, I got it right here, 18 hours. So if you held your piece of poultry at 68 degrees for 18 hours, it's the same thing as holding it at 107 degrees for 4 hours. People are overreact. I think you have a greater chance of getting salmonella from cross-contamination at a salad bar than you are from eating an undercooked piece of chicken. You take more risk eating at a salad bar than you do eating an undercooked piece of chicken.
Or
Absolutely.
Chipotle, or eating at Chipotle with their lettuce, because they seem to kill everybody when you go.
Oh God, I've never been to one. Never been to one.
All right,
Yeah, no,
guys.
definitely vegetables will kill you.
Yeah.
Hey all, Inkbird's got a few new great products this year, and one of them is their brand new vacuum sealer. Has a very compact design, but has all the functions that you would need. Has a dry and moist option, plus a seal and vacuum seal button, and a stop button, plus a built-in bag cutter. It's small enough to fit in your drawer or take with you on vacation. So it also has an accessory attachment for any containers that use any other vacuum sealer brand containers. Check it out, guys. It's like $60 right now on Amazon, so it's also very affordable. And it's in Inkbird, so I know it's a good product. So check it out in the link below. Check out Inkbird products, and back to the show.
All right. Well, let's go from stinky meat to Thanksgiving. I know that you've been working pretty hard this week, Lloyd, because you got a big family get together that you're not supposed to be having. I'm going to tell the governor come raid your house or wherever you're meeting. So
that's going to be very difficult. They better bring it. They better bring an army.
So you've been processing a lot of turkeys. This comes up every year, and I decided I wasn't going to do a Thanksgiving or a turkey video this year. I've done a couple. Last year, I think I did two. Sous vide turkeys. People always ask, and there's multiple ways to do them. The best way is how you do it, is you separate the white and dark meat and cook them at different temperatures, because that way they're coming out perfect. I like, when I'm cooking, I like to spatchcock it and kind of go for a in between temperature, and where I want, like I do like 148. Where usually you'd want
darker white for the darker white
for both. For what I'm doing a spatchcock when I'm cooking the whole bird together. Okay. So
that's not what I do.
And then there's people that want to cook the whole bird still sous vide, and then I think I just saw a post where Kevin was talking to somebody about that. You got to have liquid in the bag or something to be able to do that with. So what is the best way to cook a turkey for sous vide for Thanksgiving?
I'll take this, I guess. I've done so many turkeys. The best way to cook a turkey for sous vide is the way you like it. How do you like it? What's your preferences? Now, I've done a whole turkey sous vide with water in the bag, okay? And I have a tutorial on my blog on how to do it. As far as doing a whole turkey without putting water in the bag, I've tried that too. And I've had I never got to the point where I actually put it in the water bath, because there's no way I was able to shove the bag up the center and have it actually stick to the sides to have proper water circulation. I'm still working on that, but my method is to break down the turkey into, and I actually use the Chef Steps video as my reference to break down the turkey, but I take the thigh and leg, keep that together. Breast comes off. The wings I keep whole, and I vac seal those different parts. And for the dark meat, I like 149 for 6 to 8 hours. Some people go 24 hours. I do the white meat at 145. If I was to do the whole thing together, like you were suggesting, Darren, I'll do between 145 and 150 for the whole bird. Meaning white and dark cooked together. And the way I finish it, I do it half a dozen different ways. This year, I think I'm going to dry the surface, put it in my smoker for like an hour, 15 minutes, just a little touch of smoke, and I'll flash fry it real fast. Just quick fry, done.
Kevin, how do you do your turkeys?
You know what? I've never done a whole bird. I haven't spatchcocked one. I do turkey. I haven't done a turkey it's been a couple of years. I might do one this year. I've always brined mine, and then like the last year or the year before, I did one. I brined it, and then I like to stuff my turkey. It's just the way I grew up, and I like it that way. So I don't worry about the potential dangers or whatever. So the last one I did. The last one I did, I actually got a pound of foie gras cubes from D'Artagnan and a jar or a can of black summer truffle peelings, and I made the stuffing with a pound of foie gras and all the truffles, stuffed the turkey after it was brined, and then I smoked it for, I don't know, about 8 hours, got a lot of smoke on it. And it was just the most wonderful turkey I've ever had. It was just the stuffing was to die for.
Oh, no.
And
Are you
the
doing a
turkey
dry
was
brine?
great.
Dry brine or a wet brine?
I have,
I do a
I
dry.
do, I do both. It's a little easier for me to measure out the dry. It took me a while to figure out how to do the wet brine without, getting it too salty or getting enough salt into it.
Mhm.
Um, it does add weight to the bird, so you're getting water in there, but it's not a huge percentage. Maybe 4 to 6% weight gain after you do it for about 24 hours. Another thing is if I get if I get a frozen bird and I don't really have a lot of time, I'll put that in a wet brine because it defrosts you're brining the thing while it's defrosting, and you defrost it a hell of a lot faster than if we just had
Smart.
it sitting in the refrigerator. So depends on time and how lazy I am, pretty much.
I do a dry
I
brine. I do a dry brine.
I like dry brine. I stopped wet brining turkeys and chickens a long time ago because it waterlogs the skin too. So if you can't really, it's hard to get a crispy skin if you're wet brining, because it just what it does, it soaks up the water with the salt, and it's really hard to get that skin crispy. So, and it's
It also
easier.
dilutes the flavor.
Yeah, and you don't need to worry about getting a big container to have the water and all that stuff. I mean, it's overall easier, and you get a better result, I believe, if you dry brine. You can get the dry brine under the skin, so
Mhm.
it's more contact with the meat and all that. So,
And
you know,
Darren, also doesn't dilute the flavor of the turkey. I love the flavor of turkey, and I found wet brining. And I've done it twice before in my life, and although it came out moist, I found that the flavor of the turkey
yeah.
lacked flavor. So I processed 3 turkeys yesterday. Wrote down 3 turkeys, 3 17-pound turkeys, and all dry brine, all vac sealed. Tossed in the refrigerator.
Now
So
the big thing this year now is the gimmick is pickle brining the turkeys, because people tend to think that Chick-fil-A brines their chicken in pickle juice, which they don't. I have a friend of mine that worked for them as a regional manager for many years. That's a myth, but pickle brine is really just brine with vinegar in it. So it's and dill. So it's got some different
I've
flavors to it.
I've done pickle brines for years just because I don't. It's why not use the brine after
Yeah.
your pickle jar is empty? It turns out great. I mean,
Yeah,
I've never.
it's still going to brine the turkey, and I think the vinegar adds, can you got to be careful because it can make your turkey mushy. So if you brine it too long, just like you would any kind of marinade with vinegar in it, but I don't know, it's kind of that. I just don't. To me, I can say I never tried it, but to me, having that kind of a vinegary back taste on a
I've
turkey,
been saving I've been saving my pickle juice just to try some pickled brine chicken
yeah,
deep fry.
yeah,
I'm curious. I'm
yeah.
curious.
No,
No, it's wonder. I've had the pickle brine deep fried chicken. I love it. It's
yeah.
I
great.
haven't done it yet. I haven't done it. You'll see it on my next blog. I'm saving my pickle juice right now.
But
So
I've seen a lot of that this year, and some of the online people doing that. So that's the thing this year to do is the pickle brining of the turkeys and chickens. So yeah, I've never
Well,
tried it either, but like I said, it's that's the only thing. The difference is the brine is it's got vinegar in it, and it's got some different seasonings that you don't traditionally use with turkey.
whether you're wet brining or dry brining, it's better than not doing either.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And, where I grew up in upstate New York, I think me and Kevin talked about this before, Cornell chicken, that was put together by a guy that worked for a university that was trying to help sell more chicken, So, he put together this marinade and, cooking style that it's still all the rage up in upstate New York in the summertime. You got all your, firehouses that are doing their fundraisers and stuff. They cook, Cornell chicken. That was the barbecue I grew up with. It wasn't low and slow pork and brisket or anything like that. It was
what
Cornell
do they do?
chicken.
What do they do different? I'm
It's
from
just
New York. I never heard of it.
Well, you weren't from upstate, so
No, I'm from
we
Brooklyn.
don't consider New York City as the city, and
And we don't think you guys are really New Yorkers. Where are you from? Syracuse.
up
That doesn't
between
count.
Rochester and Syracuse. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's marinated in like apple cider vinegar and garlic
Oh,
and some other thing, like an egg. It's kind of like a mayonnaise. It's similar to Alabama white barbecue sauce,
I bet you it
and
tastes good though.
it's marinated and then
Oh, it
it's
is good.
grilled, so it is good. It's got
I
that
bet you it's great. Oh,
tangy,
nice.
So kind of
I was
similar
having
to
a
a pickle brine. Similar to
I
a
was having
pickle
a
brine.
I was having a conversation with Meathead about Cornell chicken because I think he might
He
be
lived in
around from
Ithaca. He
there.
lived in Ithaca. His wife was
Okay,
like
yeah.
a professor there for a while.
So I did some research, and the professor who came up with Cornell chicken, invented it while he was a professor at Penn State.
Yeah, but then he moved to Cornell and he was working
Then he
for
moved to
like the
Cornell.
national chicken board or something that would to
Yeah.
put it together to. And he was the guy that invented like chicken hot dogs and turkey pastrami and that kind of stuff. We have him to thank for that abomination. So, so let's talk about other Thanksgiving meats and stuff. Sometimes people don't cook turkey. Some people cook hams. I know that you're not cooking one, Lloyd, but
No.
a lot of times we'll have a ham, and those are really easy to cook. Most of them are already, that you buy at the store are already pre-cooked anyway. You just got to heat them up. You can, buy a raw ham and cure it yourself if you want. I've seen some friends of mine do that. If you buy some of the heritage type pork stuff, you can get a whole ham and do it yourself. But those are kind of easy. You don't really have to sous vide those, but I actually did one last year. I think I sous vide and then finished it up on the smoker, and it's just an easier way to get it cooked. Get it heated up all the way through to a certain temperature, and then just kind of finish it off with a little smoke. So that's another thing. Well, people kind of look at sous vide and they say, "Well, why are you going through the trouble of that?" It's like, well. It's a good way to heat it all the way through to a precise temperature. You don't have to overcook it or dry it out. Even ham can get dried out, if you have it on the smoker for too long. So, but I also like to do a prime rib for, the holidays as well. So those big beef roasts are really, for me, one of my favorite things to sous vide because you can get that all over, doneness, perfect, get them cooked without overcooking them, drying them out, then just get a quick sear on them. So what's your favorite way to cook your prime ribs or your roasts there, Kevin?
Oh, my favorite. I mean sous vide, obviously. Like you said, it comes out just perfectly and exactly what you want. There's no easier way to do it. I have a friend who has a restaurant not far from me, and he does prime rib for every Friday, first Friday and Saturday of the month, and he's probably doing 3 whole prime ribs every night when he's doing that.
Wow.
But I've tried to convince him about sous vide. Now his kitchen is really tiny, so he'd need a pretty big water bath to have 2 or 3 of those roasts going. But I've
What does
showed
he
him a few
use?
times. What's
Kevin,
that?
what does he use? What does he use for with prime rib? You're over the course of several hours, you're serving it to your customers. Some people like, rare, medium rare. How's he do that with does he have a combi oven?
No, he doesn't. He's really good at it. I mean, he's skillful. He first of all, he sells out pretty darn quick, so he doesn't have prime ribs sitting around,
Okay.
in a warming box for 6 hours. He's probably done with all his prime rib in 2 hours.
Oh wow.
Between like 5 and 7, he's sold out. It's real popular, and he's really good at it. I mean, he puts out some real good quality. I mean, he's good at it, and the only way he's consistent. I've never seen him screw one up or you know, um, you can't beat sous vide, but he's about as good as not doing it sous vide as anyone I know. Uh, but yeah, I mean, otherwise, and I think if someone wants, if someone wants theirs, medium or well done, he's going to cringe and cut a piece off and throw it on the flat top. and finish it off like that. Because there's
or in the salamander. A lot of times he'll just toss it in the salamander and heat it up that way.
If he had one, he could.
All right, so let's talk about sides. Well, we could talk about duck too. I know people sometimes do duck for Thanksgiving, but
I've got no experience with duck.
I was thinking of doing a goose this year.
Can you not eat duck, Lloyd?
No, I love eating duck, but I've never cooked a whole duck before. I've cured duck. I've done the legs like confit and stuff like that. I've done duck prosciutto, but I've never done like a whole duck before or a goose. So I've got no experience in that at all.
Well, I just did one, because I did one for the recipe for my book, and I had never really cooked a whole duck. I tried to do one before for a video, and I actually kept the video because it was like I kept it for a what not to do video. And but the one I just did now was actually turned out really good, and even my wife and kids liked it. And they were
nice.
they don't like, I don't want to eat duck. They just never eat it, so they didn't know what to expect. I cooked it in the Anova Precision Oven. I did it at 158 for like 6 hours, and because I did it at the higher temperature, so the fat would break down. And then the
breast wasn't dry.
No, it wasn't dry at all. And because I did it.
Did you spatchcock it?
Nope, I kept it whole. And I had it on 100% humidity, and then
you did it in the combi oven, right?
Yeah, I did it in the Anova oven.
Oh, gotcha.
Then I put it out, and then I finished it out on the smoker, and crisped the skin up at a higher temperature, so it didn't dry out the breast at all. Everything turned out great. So I put a little bit of the orange sauce on to glaze it when I had it on the smoker.
I'd like to eat that.
It was actually really good. So
that sounds great.
I did a whole goose one year. I've done a few of them, and to get the whole bird to the point where the leg meat is edible or fun to eat. The breast is just complete. It's just sandpaper. It's dry. I mean, it's terrible. So ever since then, I always break down my ducks and my geese, cook the breasts at like 132 to 135, and then the legs I'll usually now I just stick them in a bag and just cook them confit. But I found when I do whole game birds like that, I tend to have poorer results than if I dismantle the bird, cook the dark meat, the legs and the breast separately.
Yeah, I know that's the way, just like with turkey, it's the best way to cook the white and dark meat separate. But I wanted to do something where I could incorporate the smoke and cook it all at once. So something easy that people could try. And I, it was a shot in the dark, but I looked at a bunch of different recipes out there, and I kind of combined a couple that I thought, looked like they came out pretty good. And it turned out really well. I couldn't, my family, they ate it up. I mean, we ate the whole thing. So that's pretty good.
Did you dry brine it or brine it at all?
I didn't.
Was it pre-soaked?
Nope. I just seasoned it up before I put it in the oven. I didn't, didn't do any pre-brining or anything, but it turned out really good. So I couldn't complain at all. So what about side dishes, sous vide side dishes for Thanksgiving? What's your favorite, Lloyd, since you're doing this big meal?
A sous vide side dish. Wow. I'm a big fan of carrots, sous vide, leeks, sous vide, potatoes, sous vide. But for this Thanksgiving, I'm making a dressing on the side because I don't do stuffed birds, and I'm bringing that. But I'm not a big side dish for sous vide. I'm more of a traditionalist.
Either have I. I've done a few, and like I did last night, and Kevin saw this. So I did the Brussels sprouts.
How they turned out? I saw that too. How they
actually turned out really well because Brussels sprouts are kind of really stout, and it takes a while to get them soften up when you're cooking them. And it allowed me I didn't cook them for long, just at 45 minutes at 185 degrees, and it just made them just tender enough to where they didn't get overly cooked when I tossed them in the pan with the bacon and fat and the bacon to crisp up. I mean, they were perfect. Everybody loved them. So
I've never been a big fan. Have not been a big fan of Brussels sprouts.
Well, it's the bacon that makes it, so you're never going to have them.
I was just going to say the bacon.
No kidding.
You can try it with turkey bacon, but it ain't the same.
Yeah, I think about
you know what you
Brussels
could probably
sprouts.
do. You could probably cook them in beef tallow or something like that. You know, some kind of fat like that, or
something
even
to mask the flavor, right?
Or even duck fat. Duck fat would probably be good.
Yeah.
You know,
I make my own beef bacon, so I can do that too.
Yeah, but they turned out really good. I mean, they're not something I eat all the time, and you know, I try to make stuff like that every once in a while, you know, to open up the palate of my family, you know.
They're a tough vegetable to nail, but when you do, they're excellent.
Yeah.
When they're not done well, they're very unpleasant.
Like I said, I cooked them a couple months ago, and I didn't sous vide them first, and you got to cook them a long time and they can get overcooked or undercooked really easy. So if you sous vide them first, you can get them to that perfect internal temperature that, you know, they're just nice and ready to go. And when you toss them in there, you just crisp them up and get them that bacon fat on there with the bacon, and boom, they're ready to go. And they turned out excellent. But I'm with you. I don't do a lot of side dishes. I do like to do my mashed potatoes sous vide, just for the fact that it's really easy. You know, you chop up your potatoes, you toss them in the bag, put a little cream and butter, salt and pepper, and then just toss them in there for an hour, and you can just smush them up in the bag and pipe them out. You know, you don't have to worry about them boiling them and getting all the flavor out of them. So they're one of my favorite things to do, you know, sous vide especially. But I just think of it just for convenience sake more than anything.
I have some purple sweet potatoes I'm probably going to do that with for Thanksgiving if I cook dinner. Probably that. And I love sous vide asparagus, so I might do some of that. I'm also thinking of doing a creme brulee. I have a source for really good pre-made eggnog, and it actually came out before at my local Wegmans before Halloween, which was pretty early this year. But I'm going to buy some of it. It's really good quality, tastes great, and they have a ultra high premium one, and I'm going to put that into an eggnog mix. So I have this eggnog mix that's delicious, and I'm going to just take that. And it saved me a lot of time because it's really good quality. I'm just going to make that into creme brulees. It'll be delicious.
You know, and I really haven't done a whole lot of sous vide desserts, and I really want to. It's just I've never been a dessert maker. My wife makes the desserts. That's about the only thing she likes to cook is desserts. So I usually don't do any. I still haven't made. You know, Jason keeps telling me to do the pot de cremes and stuff like that. I always think about doing them and the cheesecakes and all that. And
yeah, my pumpkin cheesecake, you got to try it.
I know I do. And I see,
I did a whole video on it. I did a whole video on it.
I do see all this stuff, and I go, I got to try that. And I just never get around to it. So I know it's you know, a really good way to make some of that stuff, like the creme brulees and stuff like that. But I just don't do it. I don't know why. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll turn over a new leaf 2021. It'll be the year of desserts.
Well, Lisa Keys apparently is doing whole cake sous vide.
Yeah,
I want to see that. That's interesting.
Did you see the video? Did you see the video?
I'm not sure if I did or not.
You had
I
to.
Did.
Were you part of the ISVA dessert video thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, she did it.
I'll go watch it again. I've been watching a lot of stuff this past week.
All right, guys. So I guess Lloyd's got a big party plan. Kevin's got some plans going on for Thanksgiving. We're not doing anything, but we were supposed to go to my sister's. So I'm going to probably I might do a whole turkey this year, and I might not even sous vide it. I might just put it on a rotisserie and see how long it takes me to cook it on a rotisserie this year. All right, guys. I want to thank you guys for showing up, and I wish everybody have a great Thanksgiving feast, whether you're just staying home with just your family or you're going to risk it and go out there with and meet with some of your family and have a.
We're going to put on face masks in between bites for your viewers. So don't be alarmed. I'm going to take a bite, put the mask on. I'm going to chew, swallow, take the mask off, put a piece of turkey in my mouth.
I tell you, it's been a crazy year. I can't wait for 2020 to be over. And but it was great doing these with you guys, and hopefully we can carry this over next year and try to do one of these at least once a month so we can talk about some of this stuff. I find it great to be able to talk to you guys and talk about this stuff and maybe expand some people's knowledge and maybe not. But check it out. Check out the I'll put a link to the Baldwin's website below so you guys can take a look at that and study that and watch some of his videos. If you are finding it hard to fall asleep, you will automatically fall asleep when you turn it on. So
I want to encourage your readers, though, to read his footnotes.
Yeah.
Read the bibliography. Get into the information.
And make sure you check out the Kosher Dosher blog. That's Lloyd's blog. He does a lot of crazy, weird, funny, and amazing experiments. He puts a lot of work into it. And check out Sous Vide Food and Fun on Facebook, one of the groups that Kevin runs that. And you can look for his snarky comments on anything you post. So, and I want to thank
Kevin's
you guys.
A sweetheart. Kevin's a sweetheart.
Oh, I know he is.
Kevin's a sweetheart. Is. But in writing sometimes,
Okay. I have my moments.
You have your moments. I'm the same person, by the way. Zoom, in person, in writing, I'm the same person.
You wear that hat wherever you go, right?
Damn straight.
Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I'll see you on the next Fire and Water Cooking Podcast.
Bye, guys.
Toodles.
Thanks for joining us on the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'll see you in the next episode. Make sure you check us out on Facebook, on our Facebook page and groups. Make sure you follow us on our website. Make sure you also check out Fire and Water Cooking, the fusion of smoking, grilling, and sous vide cooking. Will be on Amazon on Black Friday. So check out the book. I'll see you on the next Fire and Water Cooking Podcast.